Fresh and Fit Moneyclips. Get ready for an exclusive encounter with Myron, Fresh, and special guest Chris Pavlovski, CEO of Rumble. Subscribe now and catch the YouTube short pod for quick insights, courtesy of Moneyclips. For the full-length discussion, head over to Rumble and YouTube. Don't miss out on this special episode of the Fresh and Fit podcast. Subscribe and stay tuned for more.
We got to say, man, without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Chris Pavlovski from Rumble, the CEO.
There's another double for y'all.
So happy to be here. You know, like the last time you were mentioning, I don't know what happened. I got smoked.
Yeah.
From who knows what. I had like the flu and it just took me out for like a week.
Yeah.
So happy to finally be here.
Yeah.
Sorry I couldn't make it the last time.
Nah, no worries, man.
We're here now, so
yeah,
let's go.
And special mention, when we were down and out, we were having rough times with different platforms, trying to figure things out. Rumble came to our rescue. So without Chris, this would not be possible.
Yeah.
Even the podcast itself.
Y'all wouldn't have Fresh and Fit really if it wasn't for Rumble, man. Yep. So shout out to Chris and Rumble's, standby and creators, and we'll definitely talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Chris, for the audience, man, can you introduce yourself to them real quick? We know who you are, but they might not. Can you please introduce yourself to them?
Yeah, you bet. So I'm Chris Pavlovski. I'm founder and CEO of Rumble. That's me.
So how'd you get started in tech? Obviously, you're wildly successful. You've been able to build a great platform that's rivaling, juggernauts in the field like a YouTube and Twitch, etc. How'd you get your start in tech?
Yeah, so I've been in this for over 2 decades. I was building websites out of my parents' basement. I started, I guess, in high school. That was the age where I kind of really started dabbling in the internet. And then it was it's actually a funny story because in 2004 or 2005, one of my good friends from high school, this is post high school now, sends me a link to a website. And at this time I'm running funny video websites. And he was running actually one of the largest video websites on the internet called Zippy Videos at the time. And he sends me a link and he's like, check these guys out. They're going to dominate the space because Zippy, I can't afford the bandwidth costs anymore. And the link was, and this is before they were big, they weren't even, I think there was a ranker out there called Alexa, and he was a top 50 on Alexa, global websites, and YouTube was 15,000 at this time, and the link he sent me was YouTube.
Number one, rumble.com/FreshFit, guys. We are on Rumble. I know you guys are probably like, yo, what, Martin and Fresh, how are y'all on Rumble? Well, content like this is not safe for YouTube a lot of the time. So, you got to be able to, say and do what you want to do over there on Rumble on the other side of the internet.
Let's get ready to rumble!
All right.
And I was like, shit. 2 years later, YouTube's getting acquired by Google. And they end up sucking up all the oxygen in the room as Google started integrating them into their search engine and the mobile phones after that, and ended up kind of dominating the video space post acquisition of when Google bought them. You saw Dailymotion, Meta Cafe. You saw live video, Zippy videos. They all basically, break.com, they all kind of ceased to exist. And
was this in the mid 2000s?
This is 2007 to 2010. Yeah. Everyone kind of went belly up in the video space, and YouTube just took over the whole space, inside and out. They monopolized the whole thing, and they became the only real viable online video platform. So fast forward to 2010 now, you probably remember the Maker Studios, the full screens, all the people that were managing talent on YouTube, the multi-channel networks, MCNs is what they were called at the time. And specifically, they ended up becoming this new ecosystem that was built on top of YouTube. And then I started to notice at that time that there was a lot of deprioritizing of the small creator, your friends, family, aunts and uncles. And the multi-channel networks, the full screens and the makers and all the big influencers, the corporations, the brands were getting all this attention, and they seem to be getting prioritized on YouTube. So I thought there was like an opportunity starting to emerge around 2010, 2011, and by 2013, I decided that I'm going to go all in on it and try to help the small creator. So I launched Rumble at the end of 2013 on the premise of like bringing monetization and distribution in a fair way to all creators, regardless of their size. It was really kind of focused on that small creator, friends, family, aunts, uncles, viral videos, funny dog videos, etc. And we built a business at the end of 2013 on trying to help the small creator. And then, you know, as time progresses, you get to 2020. The 2020 election cycle kicks in, and something dramatic starts happening. It was, I remember like very vividly, because it was in the summer of 2020 that I got a phone call from the ranking member of the U.S. House Intel Committee. But to put this in perspective, I'm a Canadian.
Yeah.
Getting a call from like U.S. like a congressman, and then that's on the House Intel Committee, and the Gang of 8 member is like, holy shit, am I under investigation? Like, what is going on? Like, I was freaking out. And I get a phone call from him, and he asks like a really simple question. He's like, Chris, if I bring my podcast to Rumble and I search for my name, am I going to find it? And I'm like, yeah, like thinking that, you know, there's some censorship investigation going on in the house. And I'm like, absolutely. And he's like, okay, so we're going to bring it and we're going to see if that happens. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, talking to my engineers, making sure if you typed in Devin Nunes, it's going to come up, Devin Nunes podcast. But yeah, it worked. And, you know, this is the craziest thing, because you have an elected member of Congress, a Gang of 8 member, the ranking member of the House Intel Committee that's been on YouTube for 4 years prior to me speaking to him. And he's got like road signs in his district promoting his YouTube channel and his podcast on YouTube. He comes to Rumble, and within 2 to 3 months, he has like 200,000 to 300,000 subscribers on Rumble, whereas on YouTube, in the 4 years that he was there, he has 10,000.
Wow.
So how is that possible? How is it that you can have 10,000 and you're like promoting in your district for 4 years, you've had your podcast on there, and you go to a different platform, and all of a sudden you go to Rumble and get 200,000 to 300,000 subs overnight, like in 2 to 3 months? That shouldn't happen. Not to an elected member of Congress, but that did happen. And that was that was kind of like the opening that we saw, is that there was a real opportunity here to kind of really like with what these other platforms were doing, we can now step in and like it almost goes back to the same premise of starting Rumble in itself, that the prioritization that was happening to big creators was now happening to the deprioritization that was happening to small creators is now happening to massive creators on YouTube. And they were deprioritizing them in some way, shape, or form. Because I remember I would go there and I would search Devin Nunes podcast, and you couldn't find it. But you go to Rumble, you find it. And this was like, you know, this obviously led to like Dan Bongino coming onto the platform. He was, and once he came on, everything changed.
He's huge.
He brought on at that time Diamond and Silk came on, Dinesh D'Souza came on. It was like a flood of creators after he came on. The floodgates opened, and you know, within a year we had the 45th president of the United States on Rumble. And that happened, I think, in midsummer of 21. So I would say by the midsummer of 2021, we had a pretty good lock on the conservative world, in terms of the political world on Rumble. We had pretty much, you know, everyone that, you know, you can think of. You know, obviously some weren't there, but a lot of them were there. And that sent us into this massive growth stage where we went from like, you know, 1 million monthly active users to like 30, 40 million monthly active users in a span of like a year or two. We took in our first outside capital. We raised money from JD Vance's Naria Capital, Peter Thiel, and Colt Ventures, and even Vivek Ramaswamy was in that first round that we
shout out to him.
That we
a lot of
did.
people don't know he was like kind of one of the early investors in it.
And that was in mid 2021, May, I would say April, May-ish time period. And then, fast forward to 2022, we end up going public in September of 2022 and a multi-billion-dollar market cap valuation. And that brings us to where we are today, here in the Fresh and Fit podcast studios.
Let's
stock is
fucking go,
going up too
baby.
as well.
I gotta ask you this, Chris, because I noticed this that when Elon Musk did an interview, and he said one of the first things he noticed when he took over X was that there was a considerable amount of censorship on conservative creators versus liberal creators, and that's just on X where like you're texting things. Would you say you saw that also on the video sharing side, where you got guys like Don Bongino, congressmen, etc., that might have conservative belief systems getting suppressed in big tech?
So something was going on, something is going on.
Okay.
I don't operate these other companies. I can't speak to what they're doing, but I can tell you what I observe and the anecdotes that I see. But when you have someone like Congressman Devin Nunes go from 10,000 on YouTube to 200,000 to 300,000, and
crazy.
now close,
It's
I think he
insane.
passed 1 million on Rumble now, subscribers on Rumble. That shouldn't happen.
Yep.
You can call that censorship. You can call that some type of shadow banning. In these cases, they weren't actually banned. They were, they were censored in some way, shape, or form, and that was happening. And it didn't seem to be coming from multiple from all sides of the aisle. But I will say that that's changed a lot in the recent years. The censorship has now kind of gone into like various different areas. We've attracted people from both sides of the aisle now on Rumble. Like, we had, I remember it was like 2021, and Russell Brand shows up on Rumble, and he's not a conservative by and he's, at least in my understanding, he's not a conservative. But he shows up randomly. I didn't know till like 2 weeks after he showed up in late 2021 that he showed up on Rumble. And, we also attracted like the former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard onto the platform in 2021. We brought on Glenn Greenwald as well. So like, it really kind of expanded more than just conservatives. And today it's far more now. Now we have, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the platform, also using our cloud as well. So it's really we're really kind of in all areas with content in all areas now. And but yeah, to answer your question, something was going on and probably still is going on, if I had to guess. When it comes to censorship and political candidates, etc. And I actually think something worse will happen this time around. So in 2020 and 2021, we saw a litany of bannings happen. Due to COVID, etc.
J6, all that.
Yeah, all different types of reasons. They found a reason to ban a lot of people. I think the new type of censorship is going to be far more intelligent, and I'm already seeing a lot of signs of it. It's not banning someone is like super obvious. You can see it, you can feel it, it's there, and you can fight against that. People will scream and they'll that word will spread. But when you're shadow banned in an intelligent way, where let's say AI gets involved, and your content's coming and showing up to your loyal users, but not showing up to the users outside of that loyal base, now that's getting intelligent, and you don't know you're banned. You don't know you're shadow banned. I think that's the next iteration of censorship. I think it's already starting to happen on platforms. Just my 2 cents. I think it's going to be an incredibly intelligent censorship operation in the next few years. I think the banning, they learned a lesson, and because in a lot of ways it opened up opportunities for
Yes,
other companies.
alternative
Like
platforms.
now you're seeing a whole economy emerge, like, and now they're like changing their rules. YouTube's like, okay, we can talk about elections again.
Yeah.
So like they're clearly adapting, and they're I do think a lot of these platforms are going to be participating in some really intelligent style censorship that we can't see or very easily detect, and it's going to be all done through AI and technology.
Interesting.
I would argue it's happening right now. Wink, wink. Chris.
I think it is happening right now. I'm seeing some evidence of that happening right now. The censorship that I'm starting to see or hear about is very deceptive. I think like the year of 2024, I think deception is going to accelerate to a level that the people that we might think are on our side are not really on our side. I think deception is at a whole new level in the next couple of years, and that kind of dovetails into like censorship. And I can see the fakeness. I can sense it. I can smell it. It's there. But it's just very hard for people to see.
I think the idea of the Trojan horse is very relevant in today's current climate. But Chris, the word free speech is thrown around a lot, from different platforms, different people. What's your definition of free speech?
It's a good question. So I particularly don't use the word free speech. I'm from Canada. I use the word freedom of expression, which is it's in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19. It's a human right that you have the ability to speak freely, free speech, freedom of expression. To me, it's the same thing. But online, there are like gates that you have to abide by. Anyone that's claiming they're free speech absolutist online is not being authentic. You cannot be. To the definition of what we understand a free speech absolutist is. Like, it bothers me when I hear people say like, I'm a free speech absolutist, and then next thing you see is there's a compliance with the government or whatever, and it's just nonsense. It's not real.
Right.
So like, it's hard to say that Rumble is like a free speech absolutist platform. It's not, because there's guardrails that force us not to be, and that comes into the whole technology ecosystem. Like, Rumble is the tip of spear, in my opinion, in terms of mass size. That's pushing and tilting the system back into place to the way we understood the internet to be. We're the tip of the spear. I really believe that. And we do things that other platforms don't, even when they, claim that they're free speech. And I'm not sitting here and claiming Rumble is a free speech absolutist platform. It can't be, because of the app stores. The app stores are guardrails.
Yeah.
If we want to reach the mass market, you have to abide by the app stores.
Yeah.
Period. So that's like one major guardrail. The other guardrail for other companies, which we do not have, and it's very unique to us in this system, is the cloud. Parler. We all know Parler. They got shut down after January 6th, based on the premise that, a lot of things were organized from Parler. But the facts of the matter is, Facebook and other platforms participated far more than Parler, but they didn't get deplatformed like Parler did. So they got like treated very unfairly in that situation. And the guardrail there was obviously the app stores were one problem, but the more important problem for them, the one that turned the lights out, the one that put them basically out of business from our perspective, is Amazon, AWS. They shut off the lights. They didn't know where to put the website. They couldn't find a host. They couldn't find a cloud provider.
Yeah.
This was like a major wake-up call for us at the time, because at the time, Rumble was running on bare metal. It wasn't using any of the incumbent cloud platforms, but it was running on bare metal. And bare metal is great because you're leasing servers, and you're kind of building on top of it, but it's not good enough. And I'll tell you guys a story that no one knows, and I'll tell it today.
All right.
Exclusive.
Yeah, a little exclusive here for the Freshandfit pod. But like, we were on bare metal, And that was good at the time. It was enough to sustain us through a period where, no incumbent cloud platform can knock us out. We're distributed with multiple companies, multiple server companies, and we were able to survive on that basis at that point in time. But it became really apparent for us that wasn't good enough, and that we needed to invest, we needed to get investment, and we needed to invest heavily in building our own cloud. And not only did I see it as existential for Rumble, I know it's existential. I'll give you this example that I've never told. Not only is it existential for Rumble to be on our own cloud, but I also felt there was a need for other companies like Parler or whatever it may be, whether it's a religious university that Amazon AWS doesn't agree with on a religious perspective, or whether it's a business that doesn't have the same values as Amazon AWS. So we decided to launch build a cloud that's not just for Rumble, the existential threat to Rumble, but for the greater public. And we launched it last week, which is a huge milestone. Rumble now doesn't have the guardrail of someone else telling us on an acceptable use policy at the host level. No one's turning the lights off anymore on Rumble. That's not happening. And now every business out there can have trust in a provider that won't turn the lights off on them based on some ideological or some opinion that someone might have, or some thought, or some any type of expression they might have. It's not gonna. We're going to be operating very differently than Amazon AWS, Google Cloud, GCP, and Microsoft Azure. So that did happen. But let me step back. I'm just trying to remember the date. I think it was July 4th weekend where we had...
This year?
It was, I think, 23.
Okay.
It could have been 22, actually. It might have been 22 or 23. It's either 23 or 22.
Yeah.
Where when was the Russia war? When did that start?
I think 21 it started.
So it's probably 22 then.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the date. The time flies and dates get all mixed up in my mind.
Yeah. Or 22. I think it started February 2022.
Where
yeah,
we actually, behind the scenes, and we already had a lot of infrastructure by this period kind of built out, where Rumble was sitting on had the available infrastructure in place, our own servers, the ones that we actually own and bought with our money. And we were setting up a CDN, we were setting up the cloud, we're setting it all up, and we get a notice from, at the time it was IBM, saying they're shutting us down.
Wow.
That happened on a July 4th weekend.
Did they even say why? Or
it was so brutal. They couldn't cite a policy. They didn't have a policy that we violated. We didn't violate anything. They were citing EU stuff, not American stuff. And at that point in time, it was all hands on deck that weekend, and it was like a miracle. All our engineers came on deck. We moved everything as much as we possibly could over to Rumble, the Rumble infrastructure, and we survived without even the lights going off for a second, because we just invested in the right place at the right time. And it was way faster than I thought it was going to have to happen, but we did it, and it was I remember I tweeted something on that weekend on July 4th, this was July 4th. It happened. We were literally, we were defending and protecting freedom of expression more than anyone at that very moment. And our whole team was working overnight that whole weekend on July 4th weekend. And it's a story that I hold very, very dearly to myself. And it's one that, all the engineers that were behind that and getting that up, they're heroes. They're heroes for doing that. And that happened behind the scenes. And now we're at a place where, it's many years past that now. Now we have our own cloud. We're, uncancelable. We were uncancelable at that moment too.
Yeah.
Which was great. But it was, you know, we didn't want to go 100% on our hardware at that point in time.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
like we were trying to do it nicely.
And I think that's something that people underestimate, Chris, about you, is that like all the work that goes behind the scenes. I mean, daily there's articles criticizing you. Daily there's people saying terrible things about you. Daily they're trying to shut you down. Daily they're trying to tarnish your character, the business's character, etc. Like, we always say, freedom of speech isn't free. Like, that's literally like the quintessential example. Like, people are constantly trying to come at you guys. How do you deal with that, man?
You know what? It's
because that's just one story, but I wish you guys knew some of the other stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Obviously, we're not going to talk about here.
People don't understand how much pressure Rumble gets on a daily basis.
You know what though? Like,
it's crazy.
I asked that question. Why did Mark Zuckerberg fold on all the things that he's folded on? I ask this question all the time, and the answer to me is like pretty simple. It's pretty easy to be strong. I just think there's a lot of weak people right now.
Yeah,
and they're like, I'm defending a human right.
Yeah.
Period. That should be pretty easy. For me, it's pretty easy. Why it's hard for everybody else, that's a question we need to ask them. I'm happy defending that human right. It makes me proud. But the sad part is how many weak people there are out there not doing that and folding to like any type of criticism that they have. It just requires a little bit of strength. And that's what this company, Rumble's built on. It's built on strength. It's built on pushing back. It's built on telling governments to, pound sand.
Yeah.